The Creech Origins, a haunting story of a genetically engineered experiment gone wrong. Comic books are filled with popular themes of scientific experimentation and genetic mutations. Horrible creatures being created from a mishmash of all things unholy has captured readers' interest for a long time. This video is about the story of the creation of one such genetically engineered abomination that will make your skin crawl, the Creech. The Creech is a 3-issue comic book series by creator Greg Capullo, and it debuted all the way back in the year 1997, published by Image Comics. The story revolves around the creation and complicated life of the Creech. Image Comics then published a second 3-part series by Capullo in the year 2001, after which readers saw no other publications. We have some exciting news for you about the series and a breakdown of all things Creech. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The remarkable 3-issue comic series explored. The Creech is a creature created by genetic experimentation and mutation, classic science fiction themes in a dystopian background, but the story behind its creation is quite a heartbreaking and tragic one. The monstrosity was created by a gentle and pacifist scientist called Dr. Batuu, who was a genius in his own right but was driven by grief and longing to create this unearthly creature. The tragic story behind his action was that him and his wife had long wanted children but had quite bad luck on that front. However, after a long time, they had finally managed to conceive, but the universe was not on their side, and during childbirth, he lost both his wife and his unborn child. To cope with his grief, he thrust himself into scientific experimentation that he believed would help him fill the vacuum in his life and heart. He began experimenting with aborted fetuses to try and bring the dead back to life. He wanted to create life from what no longer had life anymore. In his quest to remake his child, he ended up with the Creech. However, in the first issue, he makes it clear that while the Creech looked like a gigantic monster with a bizarre face, weird skin, and so on, he was not evil or beastly in any manner. In fact, Dr. Batuu had raised the Creech in absolute vacuum, shielding him from all the negative influences of the world. Dr. Batuu believed that he possessed a virginal mind that did not know or understand the concept of limitations. Thus, the Creech was limitless. Because he had no concept of good or evil, he was a pure and innocent being, comparable to Adam himself, created in the image of that purity. However, the world outside is big and bad, and there is no dearth of people who would want to acquire such a monstrous being and mold its mind to serve their wicked purposes. Thus lay the dual-edged sword of science and scientific advancement, and Dr. Batuu laments the first issue because of how he was being persecuted for his creation rather than being praised because he gave new life to aborted fetuses. He was being persecuted because the Creech was taken from him to be used as a weapon of war by a particular organization that believed he would make the perfect, emotionless, lethal soldier. The first issue opens with a lot of action and violence as we see a group of mercenaries gun down some sort of a massive creature. This creature happens to be the Creech, and he is taken away to a secret facility where the people there turn him into a weapon of war by shackling him to technology to control him. Dr. Batuu is taken to this facility and shown how his beloved creature was being held captive. This is where he realizes that his vision of making a new life out of those dead and gone had been perverted by the people who owned and ran the lab, an organization called Agency. It is important to remember here that Dr. Batuu loved his creation as his own child and thus wanted to set him free from this life of being a war machine. Seeing the changed state of his creation, he decided to orchestrate the Creech's proverbial fall from grace and believed that only this fall from grace would allow him salvation. The story is also set in a dystopian world where there are groups and cults, one of them being the Voice of God, who begins vehemently protesting against the agency because they believed that the organization was creating demons out of dead fetuses, as seen in the case of the Creech. The story moves along at a quick pace as the reader discovers other interesting information about the titular beast. We see that the Creech was not only a result of genetically putting together aborted fetuses, but also had alien DNA in it as well, complicating matters. Finally, towards the end of the first issue, Dr. Batuu decides to transfer his thoughts, memories, emotions, practically his entire consciousness, into the Creech to stop the creature from completely becoming a war machine. He hoped that his human conscience and limitations would help the Creech distinguish between right and wrong, good and bad, and most importantly, grant the creature free will. Thus, Dr. Batuu went ahead with the mind transfer, and as it took place, a reporter watched all of it, marveling at how the doctor went to such lengths to save the creature, with no regard for his own safety. However, the agents of Agency, specifically a man named Dennis Dross, apprehends Dr. Batuu as the transfer ends and blows out his brains with his gun, killing the doctor. Thus began the story of the Creech. As the benevolent Dr. Batu's awareness contends with its genetically created inclinations for violence and death, the suddenly self-aware creature is a jumble of internal contradictions. During one of his conflicts, he kills Dross, an influential member of the agency. The comic has tons of action and violence, and the illustrations do wonders in providing readers with a stunning visual experience. However, there are more complications than a newfound human conscience. Remember how the creature's DNA was discovered to be identical to that of aliens planning an invasion of Earth? Well, these aliens have now become the second impediment of his quest for freedom, bent on the annihilation of the human species. Unfortunately, the creature sacrifices himself to Self-Earth from an extraterrestrial invasion before he has a chance to resolve his own concerns. This one is truly a wonderful storyline that captured the attention of audiences to the point that people still want a sequel to this comic, although it was published 2 decades ago. What makes the Creature so powerful? The Creature is powerful for a number of reasons, one of them being its obviously unique physiology. His genetic makeup gives him insane strength, which is further enhanced when the agency adds machinery and lethal technology to his already unique body and transforms him into a war machine. Some of these added technologies are tentacles of steel that can repel bullets at crazy speeds and an aggressive reactor chip, or ARC, that kicks in when he perceives danger, one blast from which is enough to blind a person. However, what is truly frightening is the fact that the Creature was a clean slate. When there are limitless opportunities, things can either go really well or go horribly wrong, and with his immense power, the potential for things going wrong is also manifold. And boy, did things go wrong. As soon as the mind transfer was completed and the Creature was set free, he was flooded with a whole host of emotions that he had never experienced before. Horrible emotions such as anger, fear, and loss. Scariest of all, as he heard the screams of the people he attacked and wounded, he felt pleasure and wanted more. Thus, what had been created to be pure and innocent had been turned into a lethal, bloodthirsty war machine that got off on violence. He had no rhyme or reason to cause injury, he did it because he liked it, and that is what made him so extremely powerful. He answered to no one. As Dennis Dross says in the first issue, the Creature is already dead. It is simply an entity with no past or future because it is made up of dead fetuses. Thus, what he has is the present, and he uses it to satisfy his craving for the rush that he got when people scream for their lives. However, Dr. Batu's consciousness did dampen the need for violence that had been instilled in the Creature via the machines implanted by the agency, often cutting down his power by half. He was also extremely protective of children and would do anything to keep babies safe. The final chapter of the Creature is on its way. After the release of the initial 3-part series in 1997, the eponymous Creature then debuted in 1998 as part of Todd McFarlane's Spawn action figure line. Capullo's second 3-part series, The Creature: Out for Blood, was published by Image in 2001. Since then, the property has been inactive for over 2 whole decades now. However, we did promise you good news about this series at the very beginning of this video, and we are here to deliver. It turns out that Capullo currently appears to be working on the Creature story in earnest. In an Instagram post, Capullo shared a sneak peek at some new Creature scripts. He wrote, "I've been busy writing. The Creature's final chapter is still being written. Finally." While the screenplay photographs don't reveal much, they do show that Act 1 apparently contains an inciting incident featuring a film crew, and Act 2 contains a meeting. This Instagram update was in 2021. Most recently on his Twitter account, Capullo tweeted on the 29th of April this year that he has only the 15 pages of what will be a 110-page comic book left to be laid out. The celebrated comic book artist promised that all 15 pages were action pages. Later on the 1st of May, he took to Twitter once again to share a sketch with the text "Enter Your Doom," which was met with immense enthusiasm by fans. There has been a long hibernation, but finally we will see it happen. However, it is unknown when the final chapter of The Creature will be released in comic shops. But it looks like it will be sooner rather than later. Hopefully, we will have it by the end of this year. This comic series is an interesting take on dealing with the loss of one's family and the ramifications that scientific experiments using human parts can have. The first time someone tried something similar in the genre of science fiction was in Mary Shelley's famous novel Frankenstein, and we all know how that turned out. Trying to raise the dead is never a good idea, but what Capullo is successful in doing in this series is creating a world that perfectly complements his bizarre creation. The Creature himself is complex and not one-dimensional, and the moral gray area is what excites readers as they read along. We are super excited for the series finale that Capullo has in store. What about you? Tell us in the comment section below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.